Well, thanks everybody, and welcome back from the great lunch. My favourite thing there was the chocolate thing with the walnuts, and as we're moving into preventing and eliminating pollution, I was delighted to see that there's not much waste going on out there. There's not any plastic or any sort of single-use anything out there at lunch. So whoever organised that, thank you very much indeed. That was a very nice thing indeed. So now we begin the next session, and we start with preventing and eliminating pollution. And to kick us off, there's no one better to give a keynote than Jussi Salomäki, who's the Senior Ministerial Advisor in the Finnish Prime Minister's office. So Jussi, can I invite you to the stage, please? Thanks very much, Jussi.
Thank you, Paul.
Have fun.
Thank you, Paul. Distinguished participants of the first annual forum of the Mission of Ocean and Waters, colleagues, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm honored that I was given the possibility to make a short presentation on ocean pollution. When I was thinking of my presentation, I met with a few ocean scientists and discussed the topic, and I read some articles and abstracts on the matter. And I realized that I cannot give you a complete scientific review of global ocean pollution in 8 minutes. Then I decided that I should rather give you my policymakers' personal view on ocean pollution. The first threat, you have to press harder. They don't like my first threats.
Okay. That's not it.
I have given. Doesn't matter.
Hang on.
I will continue on without the slides. There's no problem with that.
Or if someone from the tech team can give us a heads up on the slides.
No, that's not my slide.
Oh.
Just switch the first slide on, but give me 2 minutes extra time, please.
Yeah, it's a deal, of course, no problem.
Okay, the first threat on my list is marine litter. And if we leave climate change out, in my opinion, marine litter, and in particular plastic pollution, is one of the biggest threats for ocean at the global scale, negatively affecting all marine ecosystems and biodiversity, livelihoods, fisheries, transport, recreation, and blue economy as a whole. Of course, there's good progress going on at the moment, and I would just mention the Single-Use Plastic Directive, which is a good first step, and the quite rapid negotiations of an UN Plastic Pollution Treaty, and I'm looking for a ambitious global treaty in 2024. Excellent. I'll check once again if this green button functions. Yes. Good. We all know that the progress has been good, but it will not be enough. We already have reports from the most remote Arctic regions that microplastics are found there. We know pictures of the huge Great Pacific Thrash Vortex. The sources of microplastics are everywhere. If you take just a 10-minute walk around any European city, and you can spot sources of microplastics, tires, litter bins, whatever. The sources are everywhere. Of course, we can try to replace some of the single-use plastics with biodegradable, bio-based polymers, but that will not be the answer. I discussed with a colleague of mine, Dr. Kartakallio, and his team about his studies on this, and the preliminary results of the research say that the degradation of single-use plastics are generally rather slow in cold water conditions, especially in the sediment, and sometimes even non-existence depending on the polymer. And I think here we need a thorough understanding of land-sea interactions in order to tackle the problem. And a cross-cutting change is needed in our societies. And I don't mean circular economy only. we also have to change our attitudes towards the plastic in general. As a second threat, I chose chemical pollution and nutrients. As you see, I have taken a view of the word pollution in a wider sense, in a very wider sense. Sometimes people don't think that nutrients are pollution, but for me they are. Every time I come to Brussels, I have one thing on my agenda: to eat mussels. I like the different ways how you prepare them here. After a while, I wondered if it would be possible to get mussels in Helsinki. Yes, and I found quite a few restaurants that had mussels on the menu. When I asked where the mussels came from, the answer was North Sea. Not the Baltic, although there are quite a few sandbanks covered with mussels in the Baltic. The Baltic Sea is one of the most polluted parts of the ocean, and the regularly blooming blue-green algae produce toxic substances as well as other toxic chemicals accumulate in the mussels. That means that eating them is not recommended at all. The state of the Baltic Sea is particularly affected by eutrophication caused by a long period of excessive nitrogen and phosphorus inputs. The loads have been going down for a while already, and they are coming closer to the maximum allowable input defined by HELCOM. We heard today Jannika's presentation, but they are still above it. And the nutrient loads are expected to increase as a result of climate change. The latest research from Coastclim organization and my good friend Professor Alf Norkko clearly states that the healthy ecosystems in the Baltic Sea are carbon sinks, and the degraded ecosystems are potential carbon or greenhouse gas sources. Well, I'm generally happy with the effort of the Commission that we have heard and seen today, that the Commission has put into the Mission Ocean. But we have been quite worried about the Baltic and the North Sea lighthouse that has been chosen, especially given the fact of the poor state of the Baltic. I think it was Kestutis who said that there has not been much interest in the Baltic, and I'm offering my help to make the mission and its lighthouses more interesting for the region. In my opinion, we should concentrate on making Baltic Sea basin healthy and support relevant projects. With the Russian aggression in Ukraine, the Baltic cooperation that we have had a long time, for example, the HELCOM and other things, has suffered a lot, and this should also be taken into account at the moment. Yes, and I close the third threat, the underwater noise. Underwater noise is something that makes me very worried. Firstly, we don't know enough of the amount of noise and what damage it makes globally. Secondly, to regulate it, we have to deal with a multitude of sources, the military, shipping, prospecting, and the blue economy as a whole, which we want to promote and develop. In my earlier career, I worked with the protection of marine mammals and chaired meetings of parties of the small but interesting Treaty of Small Cetaceans, Azkabans. Oh, even twice. They chose me once again. That's great. And I'm very pleased to see the progress in the EU in abating underwater noise. And the threshold values developed under the Marine Framework Strategy Directive is a good start and gives a good example for the rest of the world. Protecting marine mammals from the damage caused by noise is very important, but we should not forget the fish here. Fish are suffering from the same causes as the mammals. As a solution, I would pick ocean science and ocean literacy. And we have heard already today many comments on ocean literacy, and I think it's important to improve the availability and usability of ocean data and information, to strengthen the ocean economy, and to increase understanding of the ocean in societies. As we all know, the UN General Assembly declared 2021 to 2030 the decade of ocean science for sustainable development, shortly Ocean Decade. And I function as the chair of the Finnish National Committee, and I would like to see all member states of the EU joining the decade work. I think that The Ocean Decade is a global effort to strengthen society's understanding of the ocean, the risks posed to it, and the potential of the ocean economy and cultural operation. One of the key themes there is increasing awareness and understanding of the ocean. That is, strengthening the maritime literacy or ocean literacy as an interactive dialogue. And I very much support the Commission's work on ocean literacy, and as Commissioner today mentioned, the EU for Ocean Coalition. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't double my time, but
Thank you very much indeed, Jussi. I think it's a great thing, I think, to be able to, as Jussi says, to be able to take things like mussels, because I've sailed a lot in Norway, and I still remember hunting for the mussel hotline, where you can call that line and they'll tell you very quickly if the mussels are good or not. With things that really mean something to us, easy to get a hold of, to something expanded and more holistic. You know, what about ocean noise? What about it affects the fish and everything? So this is a great way of bringing in the pollution side of things. Thank you very much indeed, Jussi. Thank you. So now if I can invite to the stage our panel, and that is Mario Dogliani, please, and Alfonso Raiola, and Uroš Novak. Thank you very much. Please join us. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And before we start our discussion, if it's okay, we have a video first on the Mediterranean. And if we can show the video, please. Thanks very much.
Hey, it's me. I have a problem. Well, actually, you have a problem too. Let me explain. Hundreds of thousands of ships every year. 13% of the global maritime traffic. 60,000 fishing boats. Yeah, 650 million inhabitants by 2050. I'm the Mediterranean. And I'm suffering. I'm not talking about business here. I'm talking about life. Your life. Do you realize how vital I am for you and your family? Just think about it. I mean, food, weather, holidays, goods, jobs, wealth, energy, communication, transport, biodiversity. Well, let's face it. I'm dying. No excuse. You can do something. Every one of you, every day. Will you save me? You should. You can. You have to do this.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Mario. Okay, Mario, we've seen this now. Can you describe some of your work, please? Thank you.
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting us. It's very nice to be here. To cut it short, Life for Medeca is a project and relates to a legislation just approved, which apply to the Mediterranean as a whole. And this legislation is about reducing emission from ships. And this legislation is already in place in the north of Europe. So what is Life for Medeca at the end of the story about? Is on sharing know-how and sharing know-who. implementing this legislation in the Mediterranean will need the knowledge that is already in place in the Baltic, the experience, of course, adapting to the local necessities. So this is what we are trying to do also with this project. We are creating a sort, we call it knowledge center, but it's basically what is the know-how available to help those who have to roll out, to help particularly the small municipality, fishermen, small ports, because for big entities it's easier normally. So basically this is it. And this, I think, is the way we will do also during the mission, helping small to develop their transition plans. And in doing that, I'm closing, we have, for instance, created the coalition of mayors. We are using the transition plan of the municipality of Genova, which is not small, but in this moment, 40 small municipalities, inspired by this, are making their transition plan, sharing knowledge, sharing know-who. That is it.
Excellent, Mario. Thank you very much. And it seems, now you've said it, we need a transition plan, but it's the obvious thing. People will go, yeah, I'm keen to do something, but it seems big and complicated. But your work, make a transition plan, it's a pathway, how to make something happen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mario. And now, Alfonso, could you speak to us about the Duo boxes, please? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank you for the invitation to Annual Forum. Our goal is to reduce the pollution generated by single-use polystyrene boxes through the use of our eco-sustainable smart box that gives the fishing industry the chance for a new and sustainable practice that preserves marine and terrestrial ecosystem by avoiding any harmful impact. The Duo project is based on the use of a washable, reusable, and returnable box suitable for all food products. The box has three main characteristics. First of all, the box is stackable and guarantees the stocking of high quantities in reduced space, such as fishing boats, warehouses, and refrigeration shelves, resulting in smaller footprint for the environment. Then the box is equipped with an accessory ice lid that allows the collection of droplets resulting from melting ice in another barrier box. Through an innovative system made of approximately 1 Tuesday Ollies, this has several benefits. Only small ice quantities are necessary to keep the product refrigerated. The products are not damaged by ice, since there is no direct contact between ice and fish. By stacking the boxes one on top of the other, the refrigeration increases as products are stored in between a double ice layer. The system avoids the use of paper tissues that often complement polystyrene boxes, increasing even more the pollution of our seas. Last characteristic is that boxes are traceable. Each box is equipped with a RFID microchip that tracks the box through the system on one end. It is possible to verify the origin of production in order to guarantee the product origins to final consumer. On the other hand, the traceability system certifies the process of assigning, washing, and returning boxes. In fact, the Duo system uses specific washing machine to sanitize the boxes, which certifies the various steps of the process, guaranteeing the return of packaging complying with food hygiene boxes. On one side, the microchip system allows to track the sanitation process. On the other side, it certificates boxes assignment, returns, and product traceability. In its scenario, the microchip helps to track boxes, life and recycling, as well as to monitor the flows from land to sea and vice versa. Thank you.
Well, bravo. Thank you, Alfonso. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look on the Duo website, go on the Duo website.it, but it's really interesting. Now you have invented these, it seems so simple. Why not have a microchip on every box? And then we can track what happens to the box and track the fish. So it's a terrific idea. Thank you very much, Duo. I do encourage you to look at the Duo website. Thank you. And now, Uroš Novak, can you tell us about the Remedies project, please? Thank you.
Of course, I'm very happy to do this. Hi. I'm coming from Slovenia. So a lot of time when we got this project, people ask, is Slovenia a Mediterranean country? Yes, it is. So we just have a kickoff meeting in Koper. So it's a port in Adriatic Sea. So it was, we have 20 partners, 60 participants, and 20 stakeholders at kickoff meeting. But Remedies, we decided it's not just a project, it's not just a mission. It should be a movement, as we've seen before. So something has to change. So our approach is, since fighting plastic litter pollution, it's not that it's invented now. So I'm working on that quite passionately and so on. So if you ask me what is Remedies for me, it's my life, it's my passion, it's my job. So this is why also like very well connected to all the issues, you know, to the municipalities, to the mayors, to the plastic industries, to the myself, I'm a scientist, but I prefer to call it engineer. So don't worry, engineers always have a solution. So if you don't have a problem, engineers has no solution. So basically, Remedies is about technologies, bringing technologies to the 8 demo sites that we envision. So demo sites are in Morocco, associate country, Albania, associate country, Montenegro, then in Porquerolles, so France, Slovenia, Sardinia. But why it was chosen there? Maybe I forgot. Still some in Mykonos. So when we built the consortium, I was quite sure that we have a chance of winning. Why? Because we know each other already from other initiatives, and we collect all the best technologies that we believe then can co-create a solution, but solution in the way that it's, at the end, it has to be profitable, you know. Now, EU will fund it and so on, but what the Remedies is going to do is also see if this can be a marketable solutions. For example, just one example that you can know what, so we have a technology who filters microplastic. The business model, for example, for the marinas, when they're washing boats, said, okay, we can capture any big plastic, but we cannot capture any microplastic. So they have special collection tanks for this, but microplastic is elusive. Okay, technology works, but what do we get from it? What's the business model? And the business model is reuse the water. Water is important, you know. Also for the plastic, you know, we can go and collect, we have a lot of beach cleanups, but does this help? Something will change? No. This is why we have technologies, and we also have this very nice dissemination activity called Plastic Fantastic, Plastic Hackathon. We have ambassadors like musicians and so on. We are collaborating with the Mediterranean biggest events like X festivals. You know, all those, we talk to them, and it's not the issue of the plastic, it's the issue of the waste that they created. So how to avoid it waste, but still be in the way good enough for the consumers, for the end users, and also for the municipalities. At the end of the day, these festivals pay them, or it's a business, so waste is a business. So if you eliminate waste, someone will lose the business. And my personal passion, also thanks to EU, EU has this competition, every year, and it was in 2019 was Plastic Waste Challenge, We almost won, we were in the finalists, and now this company is in this mission. So plastic-free cosmetics, zero waste cosmetics. So it's a lifestyle, it's a movement, and this is why I'm so passionate about it. So, but still, can we change something? I don't know. But what we will do, we will definitely try it. Someone asked me, how long your project lasts? And my answer is, forever. Because that's the mission. It's not that like project ends. It's just what we will deliver that people can use it. If it's like a new lifestyle, better lifestyle. It's some profitable solution. So we have 12 technologies in the remedies. All those were already carefully selected, and we hope that they will be able to replicate, since missions, innovation action also have this replication as a, it works, people can use it, but it has to be also profitable. And final remarks, to the scientists, honestly, I'm moving around a lot and asking the people, but in science we have a problem. Salaries are too low. Young people rather go to the industry, so we have to do something about it. That it's also the salaries in that regard. It's more, if you want to be as a Europe as a world famous in the scientific publication, but then realization is a little bit less. But still, young people rather go to the industry as to the science. So, that's.
Thank you.
That's for me.
Thank you very much, Uroš. Thank you. And I think you're really onto something, Uroš, because as we all know, plastic has become this remarkable common denominator with which to speak about the ocean. And this started, as you were speaking, I was remembering the Laysin albatross on the beaches with the blown apart bellies where they're dried up, and inside those amazing photographs of common objects that we all know, bottle tops and all other bits of plastic. And that was one of the key moments, I think, in everybody realizing that every bit of discarded plastic goes somewhere. So using plastic as a way of speaking about the ocean in this instance is perfect. If I may come back to Mario, your project, you say it is a wake-up call for Mediterranean. And just looking at the numbers, and we all know these numbers about the Mediterranean. We know how busy it is, the Middle Sea, of course. But it seems to me that with your approach, because there's so much pressure on the Mediterranean, that as soon as we start getting some success, we're going to see some big rewards. As soon as you start backing off on some of the pollution stresses and some of the overfishing stresses and whatnot, we're soon going to have successes, and those successes will build more. Am I right with that? That as soon as we get something, we're really going to go places?
Yes, Paul, you are 200% right. To cut it short, we should not ask what the mission can do for me. We should ask what we can do for the mission. In other words, either we all arrive or nobody win. All together or nobody. So you're perfectly right. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. And Alfonso, if I can, what's next for the Duo boxes?
For the future, let us envision collaboration with European countries and institutions, and preserve the marine and the terrestrial of the pollution of the polystyrene. It's very important with the system Duo. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Alfonso. Now, Uroš, I'm sorry I cut you off because I was talking about plastic in the ocean and you're the man. So do you want to follow up on some of that? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a remark, basically what you see is only 20% most of the plastics, it's below, and also microplastic. Can you see it? Do you know where it is?
Us.
Yeah, but if you cannot see it, it's not a problem. So, here also in Slovenia, we have a great initiative, one NGO, Clear the Home Country, 250 people participated. Then they repeated in 2012. In 2018, people said, yeah, no more. I don't want to clean plastic from others. So, but, when I'm preparing for this, when you go through Twitter, you see news from BBC, 300 trucks per day of plastic packaging go from Germany or to Europe to Turkey, because I guess it's a business model that works, I don't know. So, but plastic as a material is useful, but we don't have to call it a waste. So this is why also the vision of Remedies is to teach people about this, closing the loop and so on. So business should not start collecting the plastic litter. This should be like a starting point, but people should learn that whenever you finish with something plastic, it can be reused and so on. Maybe even it can be tracked, Why not? If you're a box, maybe even plastic can be tracked, and then you know exactly where it is.
Thank you, Uroš. And if I can just ask the panel, I was in Geneva. I do some work for the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm conventions. And as you know, that's, covers waste. And I think it was 4 years ago in Geneva when all of the parties agreed that there would be a way of listing plastic as a persistent organic pollutant. It couldn't be done before because it was always the individual components, but then suddenly plastic was. And that led to the passing of the new laws, international laws, enforced by customs and Interpol and everybody, that mean that when a company or a country ships plastic waste to another country for recycling, there has to be something called prior informed consent. So if a country sends loads of containers somewhere for recycling and says it's all PET, when they open those containers, it has to be PET, or they can ship it back, and there's enforcement. So this feels to me like another great bit of success. What's your take on these new laws that are coming up and this new one that might be coming in a few years?
Yeah, so remember COVID, how easy people can be forced to do something,
Yes.
Make plastic as you mentioned, something like it's pollutant or like toxic material, or increase the value of the plastic, through other solutions like bioplastic. Other alternatives should have a chance because plastic is the cheapest material, If it's that the case, it can start from increasing the taxes for the fossil fuels and so on. And what happens also, if you noted, so it's like there's always some crises that prevent that plastic legislation will be implemented in more details. Someone told me from this, yeah, but it was COVID, we're doing so much, so good, but there is a COVID and everything, went we need more plastic because it's more hygienic, protective, and so on. So there's always some crisis and so on. So just I have no idea to that, but if really something can be done, it's I don't know the solution, but it can be done since we've seen it already. If it's
well said, Uroš. And just to finish, I remember I was in Geneva last year at the Palais des Nations when the big Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm convention. At the end, at night, they had a beautiful laser light show, and it said, "We need plastic. We just need to learn how to manage it." Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Great. Thank you. Alfonso, thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, so we go from plastic to the blue economy, and there's lots of words, blue economy, the term is thrown around, and it is a good thing, but it's a bit complex to get it right. So to help us get this thing right, blue economy, make it climate neutral and circular. We have Spiros Gouvelis, mission board member. So now where has he escaped? No, here he is. Spiros, the stage is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's a good way to start it. Paul says it's complex, it's complicated, and I'm giving Spiros 8 minutes to do it. Fantastic. Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
3 numbers. 40% of the world population live near coastal zones. 40%. More than 3 billion people utilize the oceans and the seas daily for their livelihood. That's almost half the human population. 80% of the world trade is achieved using the seas, which means that the seas play a more important role than any other type of activity in the life of humans. And through this, we need to understand how much it means. Usually, I have to tell you that I agreed with Paul that I will be spending the first 5 minutes just reading statistics to you so that I can make it interesting. But I won't. So when we think about the blue economy, we usually think about the economic part, but it's not only this. Because when you think about what the ocean gives back to people, to our societies, we also have ecosystem services. You don't assign a value, I'm selling it to somebody, but it's a system that has value. You have cultural services, very strongly connected. If you add those to the economic values, the overall ocean economy is estimated somewhere between $3 to $6 trillion, which is a lot. That's the biggest chunk in anything that the economy produces. If you take it in terms of the strict value added, then it goes only down to 1.5 trillion, but this is the size of the economy of Canada. So what the economy does in strict economy, the blue economy does in strict economic terms, is that it's one of the biggest countries. And actually, the OECD is doing a projection that by 2030, this will double. It will become double the size. So it will reach around $3 trillion and provide employment of around 40 million. This is the size of Germany's economy and Germany's workforce. So one thing you learn today is that Germany has twice the size of Canada in terms of the economy. In the European Union, the blue economy, the European Union is a leader in the blue economy, and it has a very high impact in terms of economy. It's about 1.5% in terms of its overall economy, 2.3% in terms of the employment, and that's where the numbers finish. Because Europe, being a great leader, has decided that the blue economy is very important in terms of the resilience of the European economy and also in terms of the sustainability of the European economy. But as Commissioner Sinkevicius said in one of his statements, the blue economy sectors are fully embedded and dependent on the natural environment. And that's a very important point to keep in mind, that you cannot think about the blue economy without its connection, the effects it has on the natural environment and the effects that the natural environment has on it. And also, the blue economy has a lot of connections across the board with European policies. Let me just mention a few. Climate change and Fit for 55, blue economy is there. New Green Deal, blue economy is there. Maritime spatial planning, common fisheries policy. Marine Strategy Framework Directive, Marine Data and Knowledge, Sea Basin Strategies, Blue Investment, Farm to Fork Strategy. Across the board of European policies, you will find the blue economy and the blue activities. And when we talk about blue activities, it might be helpful to also make the differentiation that we have two big, let's say, chunks of activities. One is those that we call the established sectors, the ones that have been going on for a long time. So, for example, fisheries, aquaculture, renewable energy, tourism, coastal tourism, environmental protection. These are things that have been going on for a long time, but you have a lot of emerging cases also of this economy, like innovative energy from the ocean, waves, currents, and so on. You have blue bioeconomy, biotechnology, desalination, marine research and technology, of course. All of these things, they come together and make what we call the blue economy. And as I said, Europe is very, very much pegging the development of its own economy and society on the blue economy, but it's not a path that is lined with roses. There are a lot of challenges, and if I can mention just a few that we have heard before, but I'd just like to sum them up, we have climate change. We have plastics and microplastics. We just heard a lot about that. We have pollution that is not plastics, but it's other things like pollutants like PCBs, POPs, and so on, and land-based pollution that comes through the waterways, loss of biodiversity and ecosystems. All of these are big challenges that actually undermine the capacity that we have to develop a blue economy. And as I said before, the OECD actually foresees that by 2030, the size of the blue economy will double. So when it doubles, that means that the pressures on the ocean's natural assets and natural systems will also increase. So more demands for food, for energy, for minerals, for leisure uses of the sea, and more demand for ocean space. That is one thing that we have not seen very much in the past, but now we're having competing demands for maritime trade, for aquaculture, for renewable energy, for coastal tourism, and so on. And it's very interesting to think that for the first time, not only in Europe, but in the world, we're seeing that it's not just water out there. The sea used to be, a whole bunch of water, but it was huge and everything. It's not anymore. We're living in a change of era where sea is a limited space, and we need to organize all this. But having said all the challenges, let's see how the blue economy can actually become a very important pillar for the development and sustainability of the European and global economy, but also turn the challenges to opportunities. And what I will do in the next very few minutes, and Paul, please give me a sign when we're coming close.
No, it's good. You keep going.
I will mention a few of the challenges and examples that actually are very strong cases of how we turn the challenges to the blue economy. Let me start by climate change. I don't need to explain to you that climate change, as the oceans are absorbing carbon dioxide and the global warming is acidifying the oceans and reducing oxygen levels in the sea, we have harming or killing marine plants, we have ice caps melting and the sea level rising and so on. And there are a number of ocean-based solutions. Actually, the OECD again mentions 5 subsectors: marine conservation, energy, transport, food, and carbon capture. Those 5 sectors only can reduce the emissions gap by 21% in order to curb climate change to the 1.5 degrees. So by actually investing and making these things happen, we do a lot to counteract climate change. Obviously, the example here is the development of offshore renewable energy, and the European Union has a very strong cornerstone in its energy transition. Today, we have 12 gigawatts, and the objective by 2050 is 300 gigawatts of renewable energy. Obviously, we can imagine that not only this adds a lot to addressing climate change, but it creates a very, very strong case also for investment, employment, and so on. Same thing in shipping and maritime. It's interesting to notice that the shipping industry's emissions globally are about 3% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which is not a huge number, but in absolute terms, it is a big number, lots of tons of CO2 and other emissions. But if you compare it to the fact that 80% of the global trade is done by ships, that, by comparison, is still small. But because the absolute number is important, we need to do something. And also, because ocean shipping is also responsible for 30%, that's a bigger number, of the nitrogen oxides, that's the NOx and SOx that we hear very often, which also is a very important pollutant. So now there is a lot of pressure. The IMO, the International Maritime Organization, is currently targeting a 50% cut in the greenhouse gas emissions by comparison to the 2008 levels. There is a lot of international pressure to increase that to 100% of curbing of those greenhouse gas emissions. But what is important is that if we go down this way of curbing the 100%, the actual full sector decarbonization will be worth $1 trillion. $1 trillion means a lot of investment. And of course, this is not something that the world is asking the shipping sector to carry it by itself. It needs to also take a lot of international cooperation, supportive regulation, investment security, and so on. Same thing for the ports. Same thing for the ports, because the ports are very important places where we can do a lot of change in electrification, in new technologies, artificial intelligence, and so on, for automation, for logistics. And all of these, they create a lot of investment opportunities and jobs. And I'll come to plastics, which is one of the challenges that we mentioned before. I will mention some numbers here. If they don't agree with what Jussi said before, you should believe Jussi, because he's a scientist and I'm a politician. So, about 8 million tons of plastics and 1.5 million tons of microplastics get into the ocean every year. That's a big number. And let me see some hands. There was a study in the UK 2 years ago. They collected 50 dead bodies of mammals, sea mammals, like dolphins and seals and so on. And they did an analysis to see how many of them had swollen bits of plastic. So I want to see some hands who believe that the percentage of the animals that had swollen plastics was 30%. Who goes for 30%? Let me see some hands. Nobody goes for 30%. Who thinks it was 65% of the animals that actually had plastic in their stomachs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. How many of you think that it was 100% of the animals? Exactly. And they had actually an average of 5.5 particles in their stomach. So they had ingested at least at an average 5.5 times plastics. That means that there is a lot of plastic going there. And in fact, the analysis shows that macroplastics, the big ones, they account for 88, almost 90% of what you find in the oceans. The remaining 12% is the microplastics. So these are the things that cannot be traced. And in this case, it is important to note that size matters a lot, and small size is a killer because it builds on the organisms. Now, this is a problem, and we heard a lot about how companies can actually be part of the solution, new technologies, and so on. I just want to mention 2 examples. One is a Norwegian-American company that actually collects plastics and turns it into traveling equipment like suitcases and so on. And this company actually made a profit of more than 1 million over the first 3 quarters of 2022, while at the same time removing over 500,000 kilograms of plastic from the ocean. Also, my drinking bottle is made out of recycled plastic only from the ocean. Sustainable food from the ocean, very important, but I'm running out of time, so I will try to wrap up a bit. And the one thing that I want to mention also is the importance of supporting all this, not only through policy, which in Europe we have, but also through investment. And we heard a lot about investment. This morning, Charlina Vicheva mentioned all the investments that are coming from Horizon Europe, from Blue Invest, and so on. But we also need the private sector. And here we have a problem, because overall, the private sector and private equity is investing for impact investment, for sustainability investment globally, around $43 trillion of assets under management. Of this, specifically targeted funding and investment for the blue economy and specifically for what we would call SDG 14, so the marine environment, is only 1.92 billion, which is less than 4%. That is a problem. Of course, it's good news in a way because 6 years ago it was less than 1%. So now we've come up to 4%, but it is a very high need and a very high opportunity as well. So we need also the investment from the private sector to be increased very much. And finally, 4 things I want to mention in terms of increasing the effort for developing the blue economy that will change the lives of Europe and the world. The first one is that the blue economy cannot be developed unless we also deal with what we call the financial barriers, so problems that usually developing countries have with high levels of external debt and so on. The second is social justice. If blue economy development happens at the expense of the less advantageous of the local people that live by the sea but do not have a lot of political power, this actually creates the opposite effect, because you need to very much take into account the needs they have and they serve through this. The third point is science. Science is hugely important because, as it was said a lot today, we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge for the oceans. Developing the ocean twin is very important, and I will here quote what the director of the IOC, Mr. Yabinin, said to me once. I asked him, what do you think is the greatest risk for the oceans? And he said, it is misinformation and fake news. This is the biggest problem because we need to lead the people to where the actual problems are. And finally, we need to rethink innovation for a sustainable economy and promote it very much. This is why the work that is done also under the mission to bring together those that bring solutions and innovation to make it happen is very important. I'll stop here. I could be speaking on this issue for hours, but I don't think that Paul will be very happy. Thank you.
Bravo, Spiros. Thank you very much indeed. It's a great one. Thank you for bringing in the numbers factor, because so many of us hear about blue economy. It's a great way of communicating because we're talking about money. And we hear, we hear things like conservation finance, debt for nature swaps. tourism, the beautiful way of communicating this shark is worth this much dead and this much alive for tourism. We hear all these things, but you put it into context for making it happen. Thank you very much, Spiros. Under the same general theme, it gives me great pleasure to bring on the team now for the Baltic and North Sea Lighthouse. So can I introduce Catherine to come up to the stage, please? Catherine, Ann-Katrine, Garda, and Laura, please. Thank you very much. 1, 2, 3. There's 4 of you, sorry. I'll come around here. Okay. We're knee deep in microphones there. Okay, come, yeah. Okay, please join. Thanks very much. Well, thanks for joining us on stage. And can we start with you, Catherine? Is that okay? Thanks very much. And you will see on your program that it was going to be Christian, but Christian couldn't make it because he's stuck due to flight problems, I think.
Yes.
So we have you along with us, which is great news. Could you take us through your project, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm representing today the innovation platform Sustainable Sea and Ocean Solutions, ISSS. We are a joint endeavor of 10 research and technology organizations from 9 European countries. And we work together to develop and master key enabling technologies for the sustainable use of the oceans. And we work on specific focus areas, so on non-living and living marine resources, on energy and raw materials harvesting, and on ocean cleaning. And we do so in several working groups, but we also work together in regional innovation ecosystems. So we are gathering our ISSS partners in the different hubs, which are basically covering all the lighthouses of the missions. And coming back to a question on Baltic and North Sea hub, so we also have there some ISSS partners gathering, and they join forces for basically building up research infrastructures that we can share as well, and cooperate there with the industry and the citizens, of course. And we do so, for example, for Fraunhofer, which the organization I'm working for, with the Ocean Technology Campus in Rostock, and so in the Baltic Sea, and then SINTEF together with NTNU actually is doing so with the Norwegian Ocean Technology Center in Trondheim, so the North Sea. We also work a lot on data sharing and standardizations with the digital twin of the ocean projects like ILIAD. And above all, we are of course also involved in the mission lighthouses. So in the North and Baltic Sea Lighthouse, we are working on the project Olamur, which is developing environmentally friendly aquaculture within multi-use systems for feed and food security. And we also basically involved in cross lighthouse activities. So we are working in one project, Sea Clear 2.0, which is actually happening in the Mediterranean lighthouse to develop autonomous and intelligent robots to do ocean cleaning at the end. But the systems are actually piloted in the port of Hamburg. So again, in the Northern Baltic Sea area. So that's ISSS.
Well, great. Thanks very much, Catherine. It's a great example, too. We've had so many projects here that in themselves are very cross-disciplinary and cross-cultural and cross-all society. And I think that must be one of the great successes that we should look forward to, is that if we've got that kind of approach, we're not just going down some tiny focused hole, we're across everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly a point for ISSS. I mean, we have so many research and innovation activities going on all over the place. And we are kind of all working a bit, at least for research and technology organizations, all working a bit for themselves, at least in the area of marine research. So the idea that we had 3 years ago when we launched ISSS is really bringing all of them together and hopefully extend the network in the future, of course, because we are in the European Union. So 10 organizations in 9 countries, that's basically nothing. So we hope to go forward with that.
Thank you, Catherine. It's so painful when people keep mentioning European Union. I mean, British man here, I live in Switzerland, but every time someone mentions the unions, Why aren't we there? Okay, thank you, Catherine. And can I now pass to Anne-Catherine, please? That's you, sorry. And to speak about the Simon Steven expedition. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, as any of these. Yeah, of course, yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, the expedition Simon Steven is a targeted research initiative that actually is promoted by Prep for Blue, which is the CSA for Mission Ocean, and it is also our pledge, our institutional pledge to Mission Ocean. We decided for the 15th birthday of our research vessel, a coastal research vessel called Simon Steven, to take her out from our coastal port that she goes to sleep every night nearly, and to sail her into an inland port of Antwerp and Brussels. And for that initiative, we invited researchers on board to do their innovative research on specific topics. So blue carbon, climate change, biodiversity, including invasive species, plankton, looking at plastic pollution, etc. And across this gradient from freshwater, from saltwater to freshwater and back. And we supported them with our research capacities. And so during that week, researchers came on and off board, and they were both early career and senior researchers from different institutes, and they, together with us, they co-created this program. They co-created what they needed to do, what was according to them a priority. And during that week, we also engaged European and global research infrastructures, such as ICOS, the Integrated Carbon Observing System, LifeWatch, which is also European research infrastructure to support biodiversity and life science monitoring. We also took on the challenge to ensure that in that 1 week, we would not only do the sampling and innovative sampling and using smart sensors, but also ensure that we could take the entire pipeline, so from the sampling to the data repository, so that people could use actually the results, the outcomes. So we took on the challenge to, at the end of the week, to be able to present the results and share them. It was a big challenge, and we invited and engaged across different governance levels, people that we thought should be involved. So we had some of the directors of some of the DGs in the European Commission supporting us and being there, and together with people from the UNESCO liaison office in Brussels, but also the local mayors and the governors. And they shared the results with us together with the press, so that was very interesting. And we also ended with a large public event, but not going into detail. So to come back, if you ask me what is the contribution to this lighthouse, it is of course the data, the information, the understanding of the ecosystem in which we want to create this sustainable blue economy. However, there is another big contribution there to make, and that all relates to connectivity. And I was really triggered when Charlina Viceva this morning said it's about bringing everybody on board. Well, what better symbol could we use than using this research platform and bringing everybody on board? So we really were able to use it as a symbol. And I think that's really also just an example. It's a symbolic dossier. It's one of the many ways we try to engage in my institution. It doesn't matter, I won't say the name, but from my institution and many others that I see, we're trying to make this connection happen. And we make it happen by trying to reach out and help people see how they can engage and how they can get ownership. So at the end, the fact that they contributed to Mission Ocean, they eventually find out, but it's not the driver. So it is about showing how each of us can contribute with the work we're doing, or the life we're leading, or the family we're loving. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anne-Catherine. It's, for me, you can't go wrong with an expedition, because there's something about being at the front line, the power and the energy that comes from ground truthing, and everybody being together, as you say, connecting. And there's that sense also of today's need for fast results. We we're not the Discovery Expedition going to sea for so long and spending 16 years getting stuff written up. We're in the business now of ideally producing fast results. So thank you very much indeed. And now, Garda, can I introduce you and invite you to speak about Ultra Farms, please?
Okay, so Ultra Farms. So you are asking me to say something about Ultra Farms, 3 years and a half project in 3 minutes. So I will try to do that. Ultra Farms is actually a project that demonstrates the productivity of LTA in the combined space, marine space within wind farms. And it deals with the rough conditions of the North Sea and the low salinity of the Baltic. And you try to enhance the technological push that we are having for the solutions that would apply for the LTA. LTA is the low trophic aquaculture, just for the sake of having to say that. And well, it's not only the enhancing of the technology that we are using and the use of innovative solutions, because well, then you are talking about tropes and structures that were not used before and they are used now, but it's also the economical value for it, or the economical viability of the productivity that we are actually going to go through in the pilots that we have. So it is an optimal solution. So it is an optimal use of the marine space, but an optimal also way of looking at the blue economy, the productivity. And let's not forget about the environment and the oceans. What is the effect on our oceans? And how can we actually enhance the biodiversity and still have a valid productivity and a viable productivity of the LTA? So it is all of those in one go. We cannot just say, well, we are going to do that and have plenty of nice numbers, but we are not enhancing the biodiversity. So we are looking also at the environmental assessment. We are looking at ways of restoring the biodiversity through artificial reefs. We are looking at a cost-effective monitoring of our impact, and also monitoring for the sake of sharing activities. And sharing activities is not only during maintenance and operation, but sharing activities along the value chain, so at all levels. We are doing that in a social, I would say, social-economic framework, that we can use this framework to give advice to policymaker, or actually to enhance policy making at used space in the marine environment. And we are doing that in together with other projects as well, with the coordination support action, to be able to enhance that. Let alone, it's not the design that we are working, and it's not the investment that we are going to be doing through Blue Invest as well. It's not the creation and the management. It is the co-part of it. So we have heard co-creation. It is really the co-design, co-management, co-invest. So we are taking on board at the very beginning, from the very beginning, the engagement of stakeholders at all levels, and at local level, at the pilot level, at regional level, at the seas, and also at European level. So this is very important for us to be able to succeed, actually. One other thing that we have to take into account is not only the engagement of stakeholders. What about society? What about citizens? We have to involve them. Ownership, I heard ownership today. Ownership is a very important thing. You own the solution, you own the ways forward. It's all of us on board. I think we heard that too. So we are trying to do all of that in 3 years and a half, and as well do investment and market uptake. And so it's the first step towards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Garda. And it's such vital work. We're talking food security within the Blue Economy framework. And of course, we're here speaking about ocean conservation and the future. We've got to 2030. So you are on that sort of sharp line between food security, how it works financially and ethically and all the rest, and how it fits with everything else. So it's a great path, I think, you're on, Garda. I'll come back to you once we've had Laura. So Laura, this is a great one. EU for Algae. It's a great name. So over to you, please.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks,
Very happy to talk a bit how the EU4RG can contribute to the blue economy. So just to explain a little bit what is EU4RG about, the Commission, through the Climate Infrastructure and Environmental Executive Agency, CINEA, and DG MARE, launched last year the European Algae Stakeholders Forum, which is called EU4Algae. This is also a 3-year project which aims to accelerate and scale up regenerative, climate-friendly algae industry in Europe. Also supporting the implementation of the EU Algae Initiative, which was launched last year in November with the 23 actions. So the forum, the EU4Algae Forum, is therefore a unique space of algae stakeholders' engagements, consumers, farmers, public authorities, academia, NGOs. So we are bringing everyone together. We are also working as an innovation and information hub on the algae sectors, with information about public calls, fundings, studies, and knowledge sharing. So currently we have more than 650 registered members, which are participating also in the 7 working groups that we have in the EU4Algae. And how to relate this to the Baltic and North Sea Lighthouse mission, because we are also working cross-cutting lighthouses. But I make some reference to the baseline study. So the baseline study of this lighthouse shows that aquaculture in the lighthouse are moving towards more sustainable practices, with increase in seaweed and algae production. And this is due to algae having a lot of applications, like for energy, biofuels, feed, food, ecosystem services. And also another interesting finding of the study is that stakeholders, which are also mentioned here by my colleagues from the panel, that stakeholders' engagement was found to be influential in political decision-making. So the main outcome, actually, of the EU4Algae working groups discussions are going to be to deliver these policy recommendations, which are being actually built based on action plans that each of these working groups are discussing. And just to provide an overview of these different working groups, we have Working Group 1, which is about microalgae production and aims to support sustainable and cost-efficient seaweed cultivation in the EU. And also, according to this study, the North and Baltic Seas have very good conditions for seaweed production, and that a seaweed industry can play a meaningful role in removing nitrogen and phosphorus from the coastal waters by 2030. The second working group is microalgae production. The third is algae for food. The fourth is algae for feed. The fifth is algae for eco, which is assessing a lot of ecosystem services with bioremediation potential of algae, and also assessing the impacts of algae in human and oceans health. And we have working group 6 about applications of algae to materials, chemical and bioactives. And the working group 7, which aims to attract more youth entrepreneurs to the algae industry. So aquaculture, also from the study, can be sometimes seen as a bit stagnant, and regulation was indicated as one of the issues. And we have legislation and regulation as a cross-cutting topic being discussed also within the 7 working groups. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, that's great, Laura. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I was just looking while you were speaking about the EU for algae. I'm sorry we can't show slides for everybody. And it's great stuff, because you've got things like food for us, the whole business of animals, the whole sense of materials and chemicals that can be used. I mean, this is the great. We often hear about unknown, unseen medical cures that are lurking around in the jungle or somewhere. We don't often hear about future medical discoveries that could be in the ocean. So these are great 2 projects. So I wonder if I can come back. We've just got a few minutes, if that's okay, Catherine, and come back to you and just ask you what's the next steps for ISSS? Where are you going next?
Yeah, as I said, the extension probably of the network.
Mm-hmm.
Then definitely to involve more of our researchers, actually, and I mean, what we are working a lot on is, of course, as RTOs, to bring our research and innovations into industrial development. So basically was Garda was pointing out to make them economically viable. And that's one of our biggest endeavors, really, and then to deliver thereby also on all our goals we have with the sustainable blue economy. And quite concretely, we're working in the next few months, I guess it will start another mission project, we're actually coming back to ocean pollution, where we will work on solutions for fishing gear. So we are very much looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And Anne-Catherine, I just looked online at the Simon Steven vessel. She's a big vessel. Yeah, it's a good-looking vessel. And how do people apply to do research on her?
A very interesting question. This is a very good example of open and shared infrastructure. So it's basically a decision from an authority, in this case Flemish authority, that decided to invest smartly and have one research vessel that is open to the entire research and innovation community. I'm saying explicitly research and innovation because it's also open to SMEs, to large companies, if and under the condition, of course, that it has a scientific result, a scientific outcome that is then open and shared with the users, public users and private users under certain conditions. So it is open, it is planned for, so you basically apply and then you're part of a pool of users, and our institute plans wisely. The same happens, by the way, with data management. So it's also a way of engaging people and see how they can claim ownership. Because as a researcher, you develop your program, your work, you generate data. But if you can generate the data in a smart way and bring them and make them be part of a repository, they ultimately become part of a larger community, such as what EMONDNET is doing, and then you can get a big return with your small part of the puzzle. And so there's a big group of people making that happen. So similarly, with what we're doing with the research vessel and other research infrastructures, the idea is that we invest smartly and we open it up and we co-create, again the word, we co-create, we make it happen in an interesting and joint planned way.
I think it is very good because when researchers researchers go out and they're on a good platform, and then there's that expectation of fast results, there's expectation of the data being shared properly and all the rest. Then when they get back to their institutions, or whichever part of life it may be, there is something about someone who's just come back from an expedition. There is a certain look in that person's eyes. They've just come back from an expedition, and when they tell important stories to influence smart decisions and influence young students on the way up, it has a big impact. So that's another sort of impact from the expeditions. I'll come back. Garda, can I come back to you? Because when we were talking about food security and all the rest, you were busting to carry on. So please, we've got a few minutes. Over to you.
Yeah, so you mentioned food safety, toxic-free. Toxic-free, this is the whole idea. And I'm not talking only about the food that we are consuming. It's toxic-free to the environment that we are living in. It's really how we can achieve high profit, not harming the rest of what we have. How can we restore what we had in the past and go for the future? I think it's this toxic-free of the environment, toxic-free of the net. Well, the news, well, I heard bad news or fake news. So it is this toxicity-free from society. And I think what we are trying to achieve within the mission, it is just the first step. We are just launching the missions, though that we have been working on those missions for decades, but it is the first step towards a future for us and for our kids. So.
Exciting business too, I was imagining young students thinking, I have an interest in the ocean, I have an interest in science. Has it all been done? Has it all been discovered? What's next? And these feels like new discoveries to me, So Laura, what's next for EU for Algae?
Well, we talked a lot about stakeholders' engagement, but also about citizens here. And now we are moving to a phase that we want to create awareness and acceptance to the consumers of algae. So this is also an important aspect of the algae industry that we are going to focus this year onwards.
I like it with the acceptance. Are you having taste tests?
Yes, blind tasting, for
you
instance.
Are?
Yeah, let's.
Good.
Not for now, but we are planning that.
Yes. Okay. Great stuff. Okay. Well, thanks very much, everybody. And the final word isn't from me, but have you got your last final words? Just what are the things that maybe we've gone off track? What are the things that we should all take home with us from this session? Just the last moment from each one of you. Over to you, Catherine.
So for us as RTOs, 3 factors I think come together. So first of all, of course, technological development. That's our nature. But then more than that, absolutely cooperation and engagement with the community, not just industry, but also citizens and politics, of course. And since it is actually the European Year of Skills, this is a huge issue now, which we, I think, all are experiencing. And what we really need now is skilled researchers that can basically freely move between industry and research. And that's something we are lacking tremendously at the moment. So that's definitely something we need to work on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jim, your next last final thoughts.
I was when you spoke about this, what happens with people that go on expedition have certain glow in their eyes.
Yes,
we see that. I think we see similar things when people are in this co-creation process. When we bring researchers and people that work in companies together, what they're creating creates a similar atmosphere, a vibration, and I think that's this process that we're looking for, to connect people, to connect processes, and to make it happen. And I think the mission makes it happen. So
Thanks very much, Anne. And it's one of the things we've missed so much during this life of Zoom. Garda, last final words, please.
I think, again, as I said, we are just on the beginning of implementation, the beginning of things, but we cannot do it alone, and I think we need young scientists to lead the way. We need them. It's not that we can live without them. They have to lead us to the future.
Thanks very much. And Laura, over to you. The final words.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about stakeholders engagement, co-creation, but I also liked very much what I heard from another panelist that said that diversity makes us more resilient, and I think also it's an important message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, yeah. Great fun, thank you. Okay, so now we move into coffee break, and again, it's a great reminder, this isn't just some ordinary conference. We've got 30 minutes for coffee, none of this 15-minute business. So we see you in for coffee. We'll come back sharp at 3:30 when we do the digital Twin Ocean. Thank you very much. Okay.